He's playing like a man possessed. Rusty also took it one step further this week.
And so much to talk about. It's not this rugby union film. Welcome back.
Man, I cannot imagine anyone would have called it the way it finished in the end in Turin between the Springboks and Italy. Obviously, the big talking point, we're going to go straight into it, is the red card, the Springboks again having to win a match after being a man down in the first half and fairly early on. The Italians, I thought, gave really good account of themselves, and I absolutely hate Sim. That, here we are again, and yes, the Springboks won from a South African point of view, but we have to talk about refereeing decisions again. I was sort of thinking maybe we should avoid it, but it's unavoidable. It was just such an opportunity, I think, to try and set the record straight from a refereeing point of view. But yeah, it's going to dominate all of the chatter for the next few days, isn't it? And good morning, everyone. Please join in the conversation. Drop your questions down below. I'm pretty sure there are a few of you who have some stuff to say about yesterday's match in Italy. Hey, Sim.
Jeez, that one strand of dreadlock is as pesky as the refereeing these days. Just bloody hell. Jeez.
It's bad.
It's like I'm trying to raise an 11-year-old kid. Can't even, keep my dreadlocks in line. How are you going to do that? But anyway, sorry. The whole thing, it's a whole thing that South Africans complain a little too much about refs. I'll be up front and say it's probably true. We're not the only ones, but it is true, as in we probably complain more than most. I think all fans complain. Don't worry about that. That's fine. But I do think we kind of attach entirely too much on the ref. And it probably comes from our history, and our history being maybe in the old days, we weren't good enough to basically just, overcome that. And what this current Bok team is showing is that they literally big enough or good enough to actually overcome whatever sort of obstacles come their way, be it the actual team they're playing against, be it the crowd. If you think back to the French last weekend, and actually I think even yesterday was pretty boisterous as well in Turin.
Sure.
If you think of that, be it the crowd, be it the referees, they big enough and good enough to. But I remember writing in my reports yesterday for this morning, just because you're paranoid, there was a Nirvana that said that, Kurt Cobain, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. And I'm sorry, it's starting to feel like that, because guys like yesterday's situation with the whole Franco Mostert situation is that they could have given themselves an opportunity to do whatever with that situation. And they chose, I'm going to use social media language. They basically chose violence, which is insane. To say the action was always illegal, and then to say there was distinctive or definite head contact as per supposedly the TMO. It's quite wild when you don't have footage that proves that at any stage. Also if you go along the lines of, if you basically having a look at that footage, you just like, what head contact? And then you see that, oh, by the way, he looks like he actually made the contact around his chest. And then it's the impact of the contact that actually whips Garbisi's head back. It's not his head making contact with the shoulder. So essentially, Franco Mostert got done on gut feel that if his head whips back like that, then it must be contact to the head, in spite of video evidence. And now I'm going to take it back to another situation where someone, a South African player, again, also happens to be a Springbok as well, although he was playing for the Bulls, Jan Hendrik Wessels, also done on feel, as opposed to this here is video evidence. It's not a good look for World Rugby. It's not a it's not a good look for the referees. I mean, you're getting a situation where guys seem to be like looking, for something now. I again, I wrote in my report that the Boks only sort of got points on board at the second time of asking, because Andre Pollard's drop goal was scrubbed off because, oh, what's his name, Vilko Low, who moves like a glacier at the best of times, is deemed to have literally blocked off this this Italian back. I think it might have been Breaks.
Yeah, let alone the advantage of that play. Let alone the advantage in that play.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I know we look really bad when we talk like this, but it's not a comfortable feeling. There does seem to be separate rules for the Springboks to other rugby teams, because there were several other incidents. Well, not several, is obviously pushing it from my end, but there were other incidents yesterday where basically exactly the same incident, but just a yellow card, because there seems to be a thinking amongst officials that the rest of the free world, they can make mistakes. South Africans, it's deliberate, and I think it's attached to the physicality of the Boks, and the fact that we declared all those years ago that we want to f up the opposition physically, and so now it's like, oh yeah, well, these guys are thugs. There was an explanation for the straight red by Angus Gardner, and I saw a video doing the rounds on social media, and basically they say it's for obvious acts of thuggery, like that you do. And I don't know, those both Lord de Jager and Franco Mostert's tackles were tackles gone wrong. That's all they were. They were not acts of deliberate thuggery where somebody was trying to hurt the opposition player. And so it just gives away the state of mind of the officials at the moment when it comes to refereeing South Africans, which is that if they get into anything, it's deliberate. It's because of who they are. I was going to say something completely politically incorrect. I'm not going to do it. I'm actually going to stop myself for a change.
We welcome it.
Anyway,
we welcome it.
And I don't know. That's basically my problem with the situation at the moment. It's not a good look. I know it's not a good look for us to keep harping on about refs, but it's an even worse look for World Rugby.
Yeah, I don't want to go on a rant, but I've said this before, and the more I think about it, and given what happened yesterday, I'm standing even more firm in my belief. There was a conversation that we had with Gary Gold a couple of months ago, and if you're a follower of the channel, click on that interview, because I think the refereeing issue comes up. And one of my big things is that I just cannot see a world where it would be fair to give a player a red card with no malice, with no malicious intent. This is not the same as somebody headbutting a player. This is not the same as somebody punching a player. We cannot have the same sort of level of punishment for this as for a player who actually does something really rotten and dirty, as literally goes out and punches somebody, or engages in foul play. You can see the man was trying to go in for the tackle. There is so much to mitigate. I don't want to sound like I'm whinging. He's not even looking at the player as he comes in. He obviously set himself up. You can see there for the tackle. There's nothing that he's trying to do. He's not trying to hurt anybody. He's just trying to play the game. And I'm sorry, but if you come at me with, it rode high, the tackle went up and then became dangerous, that tells me that you've never tried playing even touch rugby, because unfortunately, rugby accidents happen. Even in touch rugby, even if you're playing sevens, even if you're having a bit of a kickabout. And you can't, unfortunately, legalize that out of the game. The nature of the game is that it is violent. And well done to World Rugby. I will give them that for trying to mitigate against really serious injuries. But there is no way on any earth that is the same as somebody who's trying to be malicious. Anyway, my rant. I'm done. I'm going to be quiet because there's a lot of comments. Thanks, Paul, for playing that video. Andre wants to talk about the cricket and Timba Bavuma. Maybe if time permits, but I think there's a lot of ranting that needs to be done. Jim Becker saying World Rugby needs to get rid of the no mitigation if illegal. And I don't know, maybe some that talks a little bit to my rant where, yes, there are actions that are illegal on a rugby field, but you cannot pile them in with absolute malicious play. It's just not the same thing.
Yeah, I guess it will come down to the wording now. If you say all is illegal, I don't know. Presumably, and then this is where I'm agreeing with Jim Bucker. If you're penalizing, if you're yellow carding, if you're red carding, be it permanent or 20 minutes, presumably it's because it's illegal, right? So it was illegal at some stage. Why then mitigate for illegality before and after? Right. You're ruling because it's illegal. Therefore, rule on that particular illegality and not kind of like, have a history of illegality. Otherwise, we're going to be paying for Bucky's sins here. If if it goes according to history of the history of illegality, we'll be talking about Bucky's for days here. But an interesting thing, I think Paul dropped it in our group, and I'd seen it yesterday as well. Since the 20-minute red card has been introduced,
yes,
the Springboks have had 3 permanent red cards. They don't do the 20-minute stuff. They've had 3 permanent red cards. And what has happened is they've actually won all 3 games. I think it's like 178 minutes without with 14 men. Probably 13 at some stage too, because I think that was Italy or actually Italy twice, because Jasper Wiese in the 45-0 in Gqeberha, and then obviously yesterday. And so in that time, I think it's just like of 178 minutes, the opposition have only scored 17 points, 1 try. That's Ange Gapurzo try yesterday, and then and then basically we've kind of like won all those games. So yeah, it's interesting that since it was introduced, presumably to keep to not ruin the game as a spectacle, they have no issues ruining the spectacle when it comes to South Africa. Look, it could be a coincidence. I'll give you coincidence if it happens twice, but 3 times all in the same season. Look, okay. I need to talk myself down here. Jasper's thing was stupid, and I genuinely thought Lured was probably a 20-minute red. But yeah, yesterday's call was a shocker, in amongst a whole host of other shockers, because that's the other problem. You see, the other issue is you also watching the rest of the officiating. James Dolman basically just, he just, that game was like a runaway train for him. He just wasn't in charge because everyone was doing whatever they felt like doing. Everyone was talking whichever way they wanted to talk. Sia, of all people, was getting irritated with him. Usually Sia doesn't get irritated with refs, but he was in there like, dude, I'm not sure what you're doing. And, like you look at the scrum, we conceded 3 scrum penalties in the first half. All 3 of them. The loose head, Fischetti, I think, he's scrumming with his backside 90 degrees to the touchline.
He was walking around.
Dude, what are you? What is going on? There was that, Wilco getting done for blocking, obstructing. Wilco again the TMO attempting to get Wilco sent off for a bad clean, which was just a normal clean, late in the game. What was it? Marco van Staden getting hit high by the Zambonin.
Yes.
No attempt to wrap again. We didn't get hit high, but it was a no wrap tackle.
No, there was no arms, and he came into his chest.
Yeah,
but,
no arms tackle.
Arms,
Oh no, it's all good. It's fine. It's only a South African. You're allowed to maim him on the field. That's what kind of gets on my nerves. I know as a reporter I should sound a lot more rational than this, but it's been happening for so long, and the patterns are the same, have been the same for so long. It'll be interesting, actually. One of the more interesting things, somebody seemed to think that Franco Mostert's red card will be rescinded. At the judicial judicial hearing. I don't think so. To them, they're just gonna equate it exactly to what happened with Lewis, and that's probably another. That's probably another
This
4
is the
weeks.
thing with World Rugby. Before you move on from there, I want to just stop you there, because I think this is the frustration that I have with World Rugby, is that I know you don't need to pay me money. They will never go out with a public statement that speaks up against a decision. It's just not what they do. They're not going to rap a referee over the knuckles in public, or admonish, or what have you, or a TMO, or whatever the case is. It's an opportunity to set the record straight, but that's the one thing that I've always found, is that at no stage do they say, hey, listen, that was a clear error, and we are going to reverse the decision, and on we move. I think it could actually solve a lot of problems if they if they felt like they had the organizational permission to do that, but seemingly it's not in their structures.
I won't lie to you. I'm less concerned about whether they say the ref was wrong or not. My bigger interest is, can something happen to that ref? If you're going to be given an Italy, granted, that's not a big game. If you're going to be given Italy Springboks, but I guess it's a big game by dint of, the Boks being the double world champions. My thing is simple. You know what? If you're going to referee it like that, if you're going to leave things out, clear and obvious thing. Ken Moody gets taken out in the air. Clear as day. He says it's a good contest. No, one guy's contesting Ken Moody, and Ken Moody's contesting the ball. And so that's not quite the same thing, is it? And it's an obvious thing, like you can't miss it even if you tried. Sorry, I'm going off bloody point again. The bigger point I'm trying to make is, I don't care if that happens. If you're going to do that in a big game, then I want you refereeing, I'm going to offend someone. Namibia, Algeria next week. Then people will start understanding that you take charge of your refereeing career by making the calls yourself and not allowing yourself to be browbeaten by some nameless, faceless TMO. That's the first thing. And then the second one is, when you do have footage which actually shows you what happened, make the bloody call. Make the right one. It doesn't cost you anything. But anyway, that I'd much rather, there are sort of real results. Too often I've seen referees who've made big mistakes just get shifted onto, an even bigger game, because, if you could make a big call against the Springboks, the bully boy Springboks, you must be a great ref. I'm not sure that's how you should be looking at it. Bloody hell.
Yeah, I don't know. And I think the fear is that it happens in... And look, I'm a South African supporter, so I'm not going to sound like I'm trying to be unbiased. But when Sam Cane came off in the World Cup final, big moment, big call to make in a very, very big match. 2011, we saw it, New Zealand against France as well. You don't want these things to hamper the biggest matches. And like you say, in the scheme of things, yesterday, not as big as, any World Cup final, but massive opportunity for the Italians to feel like they took on like you say, the double world champions. They went out there full strength. They scrummed like Trojans. They played really hard. I thought they were really good in the first half, particularly. They did drop off. Rassie made some very early changes, which maybe we should talk about, or maybe we should also just forget about. You saw there Paul had a picture of the Force doing its thing, so maybe we should just forget about it.
If you could work those changes out, then by all means you can talk about them.
Yeah, no. I've got no idea what was happening there. There we go. May the Force be with the refs. because clearly it was, that very, very strong force with the TMO. But yeah, so much happened. And I think maybe before I get lost in all of the messages as well, and I do appreciate them, because Emmanuel Chuma saying, how do the officials on the field call out intention? Which is, I think, speaks to exactly what we're talking about. Intent is, it's murky when you start lumping that in with what are essentially rugby incidents. Andre saying the mafia bookies of Juventus tried to rig it to be close.
All
We
right,
don't care. Bring it.
steady on.
Okay.
Always with the bookies, Andre. Always with the
Yeah,
bookies.
always.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh,
Pedro's
sorry,
on the back,
sorry,
but
I see.
yeah.
I see Nobubele asking, is it a matter of a new law or rule or a new interpretation from the refs?
Mm.
How do you put it? I don't necessarily think it's a. Well, I think it's the application of.
Yes.
Do you want to call it a new law? The 20-minute red. I
Can I
think
say, I
essentially
think what it is,
that's becoming the issue. The issue is becoming determining on field which kind of red it is, and I think at the moment the guys are blurring the line. And how do you know you've blurred the line often, or you are crossing the line? It's only after you've done it. And unfortunately, the three times or so it's been done sort of decisively, it's been against the Boks. So I think it is a case of grappling with the new red laws, in that there are two options. There's a lesser option and there's a more damaging option. And yeah, it's like I said, it's unfortunate that referees have chosen violence when it has come to the Boks.
have you ever done those flow diagrams where you show like one aspect or topic and then you link it to the next and link it to the next and link it to the next? I know that computer programmers start out by learning how to do flow charts, and I kind of think that World Rugby has a flow chart problem, because now you've gone and instituted this 20-minute red card. Logically, and I hate to use the word again, organizationally, because you need to have everybody on board. You've now gone and had to sit down and say, okay, if this happens, then the outcome should be. If that happens, then we should be able to mitigate. And it becomes this flow chart way of looking at refereeing decisions, where I feel like it's left very, very little room for the referee to do a Derek Bevan. There's going back to do a Jonathan Kaplan, and say, listen, gentlemen, we're 10 minutes in. That hit was high. I won't be having any more of it. Just be careful. Arms down. Whatever it is. Let the referee actually take charge of the game, the flow of the game, and not automatically have to resort to, sure, in our last briefing, if this happens, we need to. And I kind of feel like it also pushes the referees into a corner where they now have to go according to the protocol that's been meted out in boardrooms and meetings and emails and the rest of it, rather than my feel for the game is that it's very, very physical. These guys are going to come at each other. There'll be a couple of hits that maybe go astray. But if it's not necessarily adding to the niggles or what have you, and it's not clearly dangerous, then that's why I call the captains in, tell them, calm down, let's take a breather, lads. We want to put on a big spectacle, but you need to be aware of X, Y, and Z. And why I feel particularly strongly about this, Sim, is because you mentioned it last weekend. There was a lot of coaching that goes on by referees. There's a lot of roll away, not now, move away, 8, stop that. Those, every time a referee gives an instruction like that, somebody could have been penalized.
Yeah. And that's the easiest way. That's the easiest way of changing behavior. It's by penalizing first and asking and sort of coaching later almost. I mean, I know that by penalizing you, that basically means you're no longer coaching. But I think that works when a guy quickly learns, okay, I can't try to slow the ball down here. I have to, because I will be penalized. And it's that simple sometimes. And I just think, as much as I sympathize with the refs, because like you said, they obviously judged on these flowcharts that you're talking about. If there is a controversy around a decision, that's probably what gets put on the table in the sort of in trying to work out whether the ref did the right thing or the wrong thing. And it's kind of like, did you do this? Did you do that? It's just this whole checklist. And I get that. It's fine. But what that has done is, like you say, it's taken out the referee's will to sort of, you know, run a game by himself. He then what he just does is he defers to the TMO because the TMO has got the footage, and therefore in his mind it's kind of like, well, if we do it that way, then my hands will be clean pretty much all the time, which is almost like it's almost like being in the office. You know, those people in the office. When they send out one email, me sending you an email, but I CC like 5 other people to show you that I sent you the email. That's nonsense. It's defensive. It's passive aggressive. Just do the thing, man.
Oh God, your office too.
And all offices are like that. There's always that person who's like, I want to say something to you, but I've got to include like HR and 5 other people. It's like, I wonder why.
Thanks for that, Nobu. Good to hear from you. And you see, you got me talking now and all emotional again. Andre, with some positives, how amazing was Moody's tackling, aggression and defense skills? He needs to play much. He needs to play. He's much better than Jesse Creel.
Okay, I'm going to box.
Is a natural.
I'm going to box Jesse. I'm going to box. Is it Andre? Who said
Andre.
that? Look at.
Yeah, it was Andre who said that.
It doesn't have to be a 0-sum game.
We can have both.
If you ask me to choose between Jesse Creel and Kenan Moody, I'm picking Kenan every time, because the first time I saw Kenan, I said, A, I think he's going to be a Springbok, and B, I was willing to fight anyone that said anything untoward about him. When Jake White said that, buffet comment, I wanted to drive to Pretoria and sort things out. So that's how much I love Kenan Moody, and I was as happy with as anyone with that performance. But I just don't think sometimes it helps anyone to kind of like, it's this guy or that guy. They always have like such different qualities. I had somebody yesterday saying, why didn't Grant Williams start that game? It's weird. I think Grant Williams' natural qualities with that early red card get swallowed up in that game, and he doesn't get to do what he did for you later in the game. So like sometimes we just gotta be happy with having all of them kind of like, play. I love Kenan Moody, and I was happy to see that game, because somebody at the Bull said to me, he's one of those weird players that the one time you're gonna get a great performance from him is when he's, there's a bit of pressure on him, and it's, there's a bit of needle. He's one of those guys, he needs sort of like a situation to rise to. So yesterday was obviously perfect for him, because his tackling is uber aggressive. And this is someone who missed an early tackle, when he was still playing center, because I have no idea what he was playing for the rest of the game, because, the red card. But like but to come back from that and to tackle the way he was doing, make the reads he was making, and to be that decisive in smashing the guy once you've made the read. And then obviously, that goose, poor Lion is still looking for him. Like, where's this oak? I thought I had him. I thought I was using the touch line as my friend. Oak's not here anymore. And that pass is underrated. There was so many Italian players. And he found exactly the right guy. So Kenan is a future superstar. And I really, really would love to see that combination of him and Ethan Hooker again somewhere along the line, because we just didn't get to see what was possible. But anyway, all I'm saying is a guy like Jesse Creel, I thought was incredible against France, and that was because you needed a guy like Jesse Creel against France. And so I just think sometimes you just gotta say, this is a Jesse game, this is a Kenan game. This Andre Pollard yesterday. It's weird. As we got the red card, I was like, yeah, we got the right flower for this. Here we go.
Yeah,
We're
and
just going to bring it in the corners. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's do this. And he did. Every single kick at goal, nailed it. Because, we were ahead. We were never behind in a game in which we had 14 men. That is insane if you think about it. So yeah.
That is weird.
Anyway, that was my rant about comparing players. I know it's the bread and butter of being a sports fan, which I probably do a lot of the time. But if there's one team that's made me kind of think, often it's actually about more than just the one oak or the other. There's so much else going on there. But anyway, before Andre finds his bookies to sort me out.
His Italian bookies. But look, it's good because now this is exactly why I was a little bit hesitant about today, because I was thinking, man, there's actually so much that I want to talk about in the game, little nuances, little moments, because the Boks managed to find a way. And that little try that you mentioned, the pass inside to Grant Williams, was just one of those key moments. And I love that the Springboks are able to utilize few opportunities, so you're doing more with less. I mean, this has already been a theme, I think, in the last couple of matches, for them. And I love that they're able to do that. Their try at the end of the first half, the Mostert van der Berg's try, was really, really, really spectacular. Came at the right time. And just the signs of
we played perfectly. We played like the All Blacks, just before halftime. Eskom scores, just after halftime. Mostert van der Berg scores, and then you're sitting there and you're like, "Oh, that's now." Suddenly, Italy are sitting and looking, because already Italy were under so much pressure, because it's been a whole half of playing against 14 men. And you don't have a point on the board because Garbisi missed those 2 penalties. You're behind. How is this happening? And it couldn't happen to a worse nation because of how emotional they are. They need the emotion of getting on the board, and they're not getting on the board because, for once, the Bog defense has taken a lot of stick since we went to Tony Ball. It's taken a lot of stick, and I thought yesterday, and actually last weekend, I thought it was incredible. And I think a big part of that is
better as the match wore on.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing for me. It's just how the Boks just grew. Like the more. Remember when they went down to 13 men with Eskom in the sin bin? Again, you kind of think, is it me, or are they going harder? Instead of they've kind of like they're in a holding pattern. It's an insane thing to watch. But I think what has made the defense look so good and be so good, I think it's having the option of what game are we playing taken away from them. So by that I mean, with Tony Ball, the problem with wanting to attack is that it kind of like destabilizes your defense in return, because wherever you lose the ball, it's not. It may not be a favorable place for you. You may not be set up properly to be able to get behind the ball and defend again. Good old fashioned turnover ball. But I think when you're down to 14, it just simplifies your game, because you're not going to be going expansive, and because you're not going to be expansive, the other team is going to be coming at you because they got one man more. So it just kind of like simplifies the whole thing, and guys are just like, you know what, we're just going to need to defend here. And that they did that and then some yesterday. It was incredible to watch.
Oh, they did. They really, really did. Well, I think I'm going to use this as an opportunity to put the red card chat in this conversation to bed. I'm sure we'll have other conversations about officiating, where World Rugby goes.
Probably next weekend.
I don't know.
Probably next Sunday after Ireland.
You saw that team that's been doing the rounds where Rassie selects a team with a red card at number 4.
Yeah, with a guy called red card at number 5.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, somebody was saying this morning that, not only are we world champions at 7s and 15s rugby, now we're world champions at 14-man rugby too. So, yeah.
There we go. I like that. Maybe he's going to have a proper bomb squad. Maybe he'll start with 14 and have like 9 on the bench. It might just work best for us. But to wrap up the red card conversation, Paul, I don't know if you've got that video, because Rassie did address it afterwards in the post-match press conference. He was incredibly frustrated, as you can well imagine. And it is sad for me because, again, it detracts from the actual match and it just overshadows everything, as was evidenced by what Rassie has to say. Take a listen.
Yes, it was difficult. I thought tougher than last week. It's right, but I fear it's unfair on individuals like him, like Ben Jason Dixon, getting his chance for the first time in a long time, and then he had to be subbed for Sia, last week off, this week again, 55 minutes. So making plans. The whole Eben was in there, Peter Steff was in there halftime. Everybody was making plans how to win the game. But we're a very proud team in the way we do level chains and try and avoid head contact, and we've received just so many red cards. Mapimpi 6 weeks, Jasper 6 weeks, and we're really trying hard because it's not just those guys who suffer in the game who suffer. I mean, we beat Italy with 14 men. It's for them it's now embarrassment. But we know they're a good team. Even if we were 15, we were going to start to struggle. When I say embarrassment, it's we beat them with 14 men. But they also had 14 at one stage. So it's more what happens from those decisions, And for the referee, he doesn't have slow motions and all the things that happens there. He trusts very much on the team. I think it was 2 French TMOs, the TMO and the 1 AR. I'm not 100% sure. I think so. Yeah, we did get the better, but individuals suffer for big moments and things that they can celebrate, and that makes us tighter as a team and makes us more desperate. But it doesn't take the hurt away from. So yes, we're glad that we could overcome that. But I'm sad for Ben Jason and for him, because they are also guys they at the end have to take the brunt for what somebody else did by accident wrong, which then get a red card. So we're happy with the character, but I'm sad for the guys who cost the brunt.
Well, there we go. That's what Rassie had to say. And I thought you could see the frustration. And the frustration wasn't just about, it's terrible for coaches because he can't really come out and say he thought it was a bad decision, although we all know that's what he's thinking. But I think
not just as a coach, as Rassie Erasmus,
not just as a coach.
Say that ever.
Right, he's got absolutely no room to maneuver, but I think that encapsulates why it's more frustrating than just the match itself, is that it's got this knock-on effect for these young guys, who don't give away. Lute Jager is not the type of player who gives away red cards because he doesn't play that kind of rugby, and I hate that he now is a red card type player, sort of not because of his malicious intent or actions, but because the rules have the referee thinking all of these things. Anyway, I think a good answer there from Rassie. I saw a couple of other comments. KTM, I think South Africans like to fight the refs in World Rugby. Our country was built on fighting authority, especially if seen unjust. I love this. It's like JCI. Yes. Yeah, and a Vietnam, but not Vietnamese. KTM, you're very right. Yeah, but we do like a good party, don't we, every now and again. So I mean, it's not anything weird. Emmanuel saying, good to hear from you, Emmanuel. Since the full-on adaptation of Tony Ball, the Boks defense has been quite tight. I always thought it would lead to more tries conceded, but it hasn't quite happened. And before going to listen to that clip by Rassie, you mentioned the defense, and I said it just got better as the match wore on. They just seemed to really shut out those outside channels. And the Italians also, though, I thought looked a lot better when they kept the ball in hand a little more. They were constantly trying to find those little chips in behind. And I kind of thought, jeepers, if you varied it up, you could just surprise these guys. But they didn't seem keen to. It was weird for me.
That was actually the huge issue, like the frustration I had. And And I say frustration. Frustration is not the right word because I was happy with it because then it meant, life was a bit easier for the Boks. But like Italy didn't play with the ambition of the team who suddenly went, oh, we one man up for the rest of this match. Instead, all they did was it was weird. They almost played like they were hoping to get more and more decisions like that. I'm just like, geez, how many players do you need in the bench here? It's like just you've got your strongest team. You've just beaten Australia. You're playing well because their attack was troubling our defense early doors, I thought.
Yeah.
And suddenly, I don't know, they're not quite playing. Look, I mean, I want to say, you're talking about those kicks. I want to say, oh, they should have just kept on playing. They did kick behind, the box, but there was a certain Damian Willems out there as well. So, like,
Right.
it's not just them sort of getting it wrong. It's also like Damian Willems delivering arguably an even better performance than he did against the All Blacks. I know he didn't score.
Yeah.
I know he didn't start at center and finish at fullback, but of the guys that were left to try and sort of manage the situation, he was incredible in his with his positioning. That was the first thing, and he felt that everything that was going ran everything back with interest. At one stage, I saw him drag Ange Kapwurza like one of those resistance sleds that you drag in training. I'm like, dude, that's a full human being that you're dragging with you, and his kicking out of hand was incredible. Just because obviously
Really
the
was.
Boks needed, to sort of make sure that territory-wise they were trying to get out of, not to be pinned in their own half or 22. And he was incredible in that. And his defense was, impenetrable. It was such a wonderful performance. It's like you look at Damien and you're like, this is a guy we've always wanted to come through. And to see that guy come through this year has been so good, because I think in South Africa, because you seem to have a potentially new sort of superstar practically every season. We currently, Sasha Bofort at the moment, and with good reason, make no mistake. But it's, the more you get a guy like that, the more, you start forgetting what you have in Damien. You start forgetting what you have in Mani. These guys are incredible. And it's nice to actually see them come to the fore, sometimes in the same game, as it was the case with Damian Willems and, Kenan Moody. And Ethan Hooker, jeez, that guy.
Oh, man.
You know what I love about him? It's like, it doesn't matter what the situation is, he'll always be the same guy. Like he's got such a consistency of personality, or like, composure.
Yeah.
You're gonna start at 12. Sorry, you're no longer at 12. You're now right wing again. Okay, cool. I'll do what I'll do what I have to do. Do you need me to chase like all day long? Yes, I'll do that. Oh, do you want me to catch this cross kick and score? Yeah, I'll do that too. He's an incredible player. I love players like that. I love fuss-free players. As much as I'm partial to the guys whose talent is sprinkled with gold dust, I'm also partial to the guys who just do the right thing at the right time. No fuss, no frills. It was a good game. I really loved watching that game. For me, that's a top 5 Bok game, in spite of the fact that most people will be like, oh, that was only against Italy. It was just, for me, the circumstances of the game, the 11 changes, no Hooker on the bench, red card, and Italy side, full on Italy side, they've got the confidence of having beaten Australia. You put all of that stuff together and you're sitting there and you're like, wow, what a performance. Just wasn't pretty, but it was just, as performances go, you sit there and you're like, yeah, that was right. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a gritty win. Yeah, no. Ethan Hooker, there's a part of me that can't help but think of Andre the Giant as a youngster, but with even more sort of finesse and flair. Like he's just got even more like a bit of a Swiss Army knife, Andre the Giant. And you mentioned Damian Willems. He's an enigma because he's missed so much rugby over the years. His injuries have struck at the worst possible time, but he has still got 2 World Cup medals, which sometimes people tend to forget. This guy he's been around, but you kind of feel he should be way over 50 test caps,
and
by now.
He'll only be 29 when he's going. He'll only be 29 when he's going for his 3rd. That is insane.
Do you know what I mean?
That
That's
is insane.
incredible. And I say the enigma that is Damian Willemse because there was a point I was shouting at my television screen because he picked the ball up in his 22 from a kick. He didn't call the mark. And he almost hit the touchline, and I thought, no, this is not going to be that kind of game. You need to keep your wits about you or whatever. And then I realized as time wore on that, man, I'm not going to even shout it better than Damien can play it. So well done to him. It was an incredible match. Black Diane saying
Like,
Pollard must go to
no. Black Jan, please, we cannot make this
Black
mistake again.
Jan.
We made a
Oh,
mistake
did
with
we already?
Mobile last week. It's not going to happen. It's
But I
Black
just want
Jan.
to. You never know.
Hi,
You
Black
never
Jan
know.
is a sharks, Lynn.
Are you sure?
Jan,
Oh,
sharks, I'm telling you. Straight up, Jan, sharks, Lynn.
He'll confirm or she'll confirm this now. Pollard must go through a proper preseason with the Bulls so he can actually spearhead the attack. The guy's undoubtedly third choice now. No more reputation sympathy. And I think I'm going to wrap it up with Andre Pollard because I did expect a little bit more. I don't want to lie. But, he still is the banker. And I think what that match for me confirms is that he'll hold that role. I don't think he's going to be unhappy to hold that role. But I do want a little bit more attack impetus when he's on the field. And I've always thought Polly would have been such a good 12. He would have been such a good 12 because he does like to have a run. He does like the physical intensity of bashing it up. Like, you see him do that to carry into some big boys, and then he gets up with a smile on his face. He took a massive hit at some point during the match, and I could hear the commentators were about to say something about, oh my goodness, and then he just sort of bounced up, like a little spring chicken. And I think that we almost need the physical aspect of his game more than what else he offers at 10, bar the boot.
Look, here's my thing. We'll always want more as far as Pollard's concerned. I think particularly because of the way he started his career. Remember that break he had against the All Blacks, I think it was, and he's in only his second or third test or whatever it was. So I think it's natural to keep wanting that. But I also think it's smart to know that we're not going to get that anytime soon. We're not going to get that now. And then the question becomes, do we need that from Pollard? And the simple answer is when you've got Sasha and you've got Mani, no, you don't. And then other thing I want to ask then is, yesterday, are we 100% sure we're hanging on for dear life in that game and then going on to win it without Pollard being the starting flyer?
The field.
Yeah, can someone tell me without a shadow of a doubt that they think that someone like Sasha would have sort of marshaled the troops as well as I thought Pollard did, or someone like Mani, because Mani's default setting is let's have a go, as you saw in the second half. But I'm that for me is where I am with Pollard. Yes, like everybody else, I'd like to see more, but maybe as an older man, closing in on 50, I understand that it's probably not going to happen. Those days are behind him. And as a result, I don't know. I think we do need a Pollard, but we don't need the Pollard we think we need, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. And then my next question is, for the long term, do we need to cultivate another Pollard and not necessarily worry about, because we seem to be in a wonderful position where fly halves in South Africa really are taking on the attacking game, the youngsters, and you can see it with the junior Springboks as well. But we, if we could clone an Aspoeta just to sort of be in the next under 20s group, I think that would be fantastic. Sim, before we wrap it up, there were a couple of other matches I very quickly want to touch on. New Zealand against England, I think for me was the other big one. And even that match got overshadowed by the red card in the Springbok match. But I think the English will be very happy. They seem to be on a pretty good roll. New Zealand had no answers, especially in that second half. I think it was 33-19, the final score. What did you make of that result?
Yeah, look, it's 100% the right result. It's not like you can complain and say, things went against, the All Blacks are not like us. They don't get unnecessary Reds and all of that stuff. So it just goes to show that the All Blacks obviously are in transition, B don't have confidence, and C probably don't have sort of world class players in key positions. Or maybe they have young players in those key positions that look. I mean, one of the wonderful things I like, they knew number 8 Lakai. He's proper. Wallace Atiti is great. I like the locks. I must admit, I'm going completely off on Scott Barrett. But I like the locks they've got. Holland and them, and these are all very good players, but they're young. They need time. Yeah, obviously, they've got a huge question mark at 10. How are they dealing with that issue? Because Bodie, as much as we all love him, he's starting to look like a guy who's been around for, I don't know how many tests has he got. He's on 130 odd, isn't he? He's been on a lot. He's been around a lot longer than we think he has. And then the problem with them is we're complaining that Pollard is a third string and I can't add anything. I wouldn't say they'd kill to have a guy like Pollard because he just wouldn't work with their kind of game. But they would kill to have a guy of that mentality and temperament but so what I'm saying is they need to sort out the situation at 10 because they generally don't have someone. Luckily they've got Cam Roygard at 9 who obviously oozes class and you can tell he's going to be a great. And so I mean they're not they're not in good shape. At the moment, they're missing confidence. They're in transition, and the results will show. But England, obviously, it's coming together nicely. They got some really wonderful new young players coming up. They seem to finally have their balance going as a team. But like all other English sides, they're getting ahead of themselves already. I mean, I've seen some of the posts on social media. Bring on South Africa. Don't do that. Don't do that. Whether they would give South Africa a good game or not, just relax, just calm down, and Pollock is being entirely overhyped. And if I know anything if you think that Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu runs a risk of getting turned on by his own fans in this country, and we've had one or two kind of like try to plant the seed that he's a bit arrogant, he's this, he's that. Few people do that game better than the English. The English will absolutely annihilate him the first mistake he makes. But Henry Pollock is Henry Pollock because he's exactly the way he is. And the Poms, as the time goes on, they'll want him to behave in a certain way. And when he doesn't, they'll try to destroy him. And that's just their media. And then comes social media. They're tracking along nicely. And frankly, they do look like one of the teams that'll be challenging for, the next World Cup. But yeah, as usual, they're getting a little bit ahead of themselves. Have you muted again? Hang on, you've muted.
I can't have muted. How could I? I've got kids and a dog.
Are you always doing things? You're always doing Bali.
Yeah, no, because I'm a timer. No, my final thought on that match is that the aura of the All Blacks is definitely
it's punctured.
Faded. It's definitely being punctured, and teams are going to take advantage. And I say that, and no disrespect to George Ford, but he looked world-class yesterday. And I've never seen George Ford look world-class against a Southern Hemisphere team. I say never. Maybe against the Aussies once or twice, but we generally don't give him that much room and let him dictate matches.
Or usually we give him Peter Steph to toy.
Exactly, and the All Blacks have also done the same. They really generally have him shackled, but when he's unshackled, I think he looks like an absolute world beater. I agree with you on Henry Pollock. Just take it all in stride, lad. But I also liked the centre pairing, Ollie Lawrence, Fraser Dingwall. I thought they did very well. I don't know much about Tom Roebuck, but I also think had a very, very good game. And then my final It's proper, eh?
Mm.
Yeah. My final question is, because next week, obviously, it's the big one, Ireland against South Africa. And I thought that France against South Africa would be the big one on this tour. But given that we're going there, hopefully not minus another lock. Their 46-19 win over Australia is a biggie, but it's very hard to gauge where the Aussies are at now. I think last week would have really punctured their confidence against the Italians, and I'm finding it hard to pin their performance on their ranking and where they should be. So I don't know how much of an indication of just how good the Irish are. If it's going to be helpful for the Springboks at all. Look, having said that, Rassie made those 11 changes with an eye to Ireland. He's rested a couple of big bruising boys. He's had his team in mind since the beginning of the year, probably. But it's very hard to know what we're going to face.
That's actually the question, though. The whole point was to rest his players, and then he put all of them on the bench. But how long did they play yesterday?
Well, they did play, yeah.
And how hard did they have to play as a result? So actually, I think Rassie's plans were actually quite heavily disrupted by that red. Sure, there's other guys who didn't play at all that are coming back. That'll make a huge difference. I think the issue is like Rassie said, I think before the match, what you don't want is a situation like what happened with them in 2023, where they went 5-3 split with in the game against France in the quarterfinal.
Mm.
And then because everybody had played so well, they were like, oh, we can't drop anyone. They named an unchanged team. And that team was just so flat because it was, it had to get back up again, and against an inspired English side at the, in that semi-final. So it's not quite the same, because although obviously the bench suddenly found themselves doing heavy duty lifting because of the red card, because most of them came on so early. There are other guys, probably like a handful to 7 guys that are going to come in, which kind of will balance the freshness of the team. But like you say, the big talking point for next week will probably be whether we have Mostert as a lock option or not, because then we would be left with Ibn Etzebeth, Jean Klein, Ergies Neyman, and Ruan Nokia, isn't it? Look, it's still pretty good, no?
It's still good. It's still pretty good. I shouldn't complain. Shout out to Mac Hansen in that match, who scored a hat trick against the Wallabies. So he was looking.
First half hat trick.
Yeah. First half hat trick. Robbie Henshaw also getting over the whitewash there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And for the Aussies, I mean, there was a lot said. I saw in Aussie media about, Max Jorgensen wasn't available the last week, and now he is, and it still didn't seem to turn things around for them. And I just don't see a happy ending to their tour.
I think he's a wing, not a fullback.
As a fullback, maybe out of position for him.
Tom Wright for me is the Aussies' best fullback by country mile as well. Yeah, he's a really, really good player. Look, they've got good players. They clearly just going through a moment, and a horrible one at that, because they've just completely mislaid their mojo, which they obviously had against us. And against Argentina, suddenly they just couldn't hit the same notes anymore. I think it's a lot of the chopping and changing that they were doing. 1 minute they had Skelton and some of their overseas based players, and the next they didn't. And it's just that toing and froing kind of messes up with with the feel of your team. And then this constant thing in the background of we've found the right coach. This is our best coach. But he's moving on, and we're getting somebody else to come in and land the plane at the World Cup. It's like, guys, this is all basic stuff in sport. Consistency and continuity, gets you places. What are you doing?
Right, to wrap it up, thank you so much, Samuel Ndisi, saying Rassie should name a 22-man squad on Monday. World Rugby. I just leave it at that and not change it. Yeah.
Now he also, as
And the
Samuel
sugar-
Lucas, he also says, "Is it still called being in transition after 2 years?"
and Shogololo I know,
These are our
it's funny,
brothers.
it's funny.
These are our brothers.
Yeah.
You know, we gotta look after these guys
Shogololo
at all times, Baba.
Toti, you'll have the last word saying, I feel really sorry for Franco that permanent red was not deserved. And I think that was what was echoed by Rassi Erasmus, is that it affects these guys. And I mean, think about it. Simi's just mentioned that we've got a pretty decent lineup of locks still, despite all of this. For one of these guys to be banned for a couple of weeks could signal the end of your Springbok career. That's how tough it is to fight for places, especially at
Actually
tight
ironic.
forward at the moment.
Two guys in particular, the two guys in particular who got those reds are kind of like
Right?
at that stage of their careers. So
It could be. It could be. It could be that we don't see them again next year because, they'll only play again in June or whatever it is. So, yeah, they have real impact on the careers, and I think that's what Rassi was hinting at. Thanks very much, everybody. I feel like I've spoken way too much, but I feel good now because I've had my rant. I got it off my chest. I didn't want to talk about referees, but we didn't have much of a choice. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my wet, cold Joburg Sunday. Weather's very, very strange here. And if I stay on any longer, Simi, I'm going to do timer things like Madala.
like mute
So
yourself.
we're going to call it like mute myself. But it's been good. It's been good to catch up, and thanks for the chat. Thanks everyone for joining in on the convo. Keep it going. We'd love to hear from you and any ideas you might have or suggestions for our show as well. Remember to give us a like, press that bell notification so that you know when we're back on again. Cheers everyone. Have a good weekend. Cheers to me. Welcome back to That's Your Rugby Union show. Well, what a week it's been.
He's playing like a man possessed.
And so much more. It's not this rugby union show. It's that rugby union show.